Thanks, Maureen, for your story. It's very inspiring. You look beautiful from here. I'm learning from Dan Ariely. So I would like to thank the Rosenthal Symposium and the National Academy of Medicine for the opportunity to let us show what design is in patient safety. So I'm waiting for my slides to come up. While I do that, I have to tell you that design is a profession for optimists. You have to believe that for problems created by humans have a human-created solution. I don't expect all of you to know IDEO, so I'm going to have two slides about us. Our claim to fame is that anyone in North America, everyone, has used a product designed by IDEO. So if you ever used a Microsoft mouse or an Apple mouse, you have used a product designed by IDEO. If you haven't used either, I could go on and mention 10 products that you are guaranteed to have used. We've been lucky to have been nominated amongst the most innovative companies in the world by many independent publications. So here's a number of Fast Company, where we are number 10. The year before, we were number 5, so we dropped 5 positions. But we still like that list because most of the companies mentioned on the list are our clients, and we like to think we help them get there. We practice design thinking, and design thinking, it's became kind of a buzzword. Maybe we need to invent a new term, but it's basically the idea that you can apply the methods that are typical of design to problems that are not traditionally considered objects of design. And the process of design thinking is very well known. You go by phases. You go from inspiration to ideation to many iterations, and finally communication. And if it is engineering, the communication is a blueprint or a prototype. If it is a service, is a blueprint for that service. It could be many different things, digital experiences. I'm going to focus in the short time we have onto the first step of this process. We get inspired by people. We apply what we call human-centered design. And I'm going to show you a few ways in which we try to understand people. So the first and most obvious way is to ask people, right? Ask what they feel, what they do. There's a little problem with that. We were in Germany in the home of this elderly woman with RA. And we asked her, do you have any problems opening your medication bottle? And she said, no, it's easy. We're puzzled because that bottle is really hard to open, even if you have full use of your hands. So how could she do it? Now, if you're doing a focus group, in your office, all you get from that answer is a check mark on a questionnaire. But because we were there in her home, immersed in her life, we asked her, can you show us how you do it? And she said, sure, come to my kitchen. And oh my God. In her kitchen, she had a bread slicer, which I learned later is a very common item in German kitchens. And she turned it on, and with her frail hands, she saw off the lid of the bottle. So not a problem, right? Easy to open. So what we got from that is that people don't do what they say they do. If you ask them, you're going to get the wrong answer. People don't do what we think we do. It's quite common for designers and doctors and healthcare professionals to say, oh, I have 137 years of experience. I know what people do. No, you don't, because society changes, people change. 7 years ago, we didn't have the iPhone. And it's even worse than that. People don't do what they think they do. If I ask any of you, how do you refuel your car? You're going to describe it to me in like 5 steps. Yeah, I shut off the engine. I get my credit card. But if I go there and observe you, I'm going to see a lot of tiny rituals. Like maybe you turn down the volume on the radio first. Maybe you tap the pump with your key. And those are design opportunities. If you observe them, maybe you can learn something about human behavior that you can leverage in your service or product design. A better way of understanding people is to create simulations of the experience. And we try to do that as early as possible in the process. So one of the ideal models is, fail earlier to succeed sooner. So we try prototypes very early. We were designing this. This is example, by the way, is old, but I love it because it taught us two counterintuitive lessons. HeartStream was the first defibrillator approved by the FDA for use by lay people. So in our eagerness to make it easy to use, we said, okay, how can we streamline the operation? So you know what? 2 stages are great. You press one button, turn on the unit, press the second button, a voice tells you, shock the patient. And then we built a very quick prototype, a cardboard box with 2 petals, and we had lay people try to resuscitate a dummy. And we learned something interesting about human beings. We don't like things in 2 steps. We like things in 3 steps. So when we had only 2 steps, people would press button 1, press button 2, and then look at us, what do I do next, right? Now, we added an artificial 3rd step, and by doing that, we shaved a few precious seconds from the operation. So it's very counterintuitive in terms of interface design. Another counterintuitive lesson is the design of the petals. Initially, they didn't have any graphics because, it doesn't matter which one goes on the top, which one goes on the bottom of the chest. As long as the current crosses the heart in the right plane, you're fine. But people would lose time just asking which one goes where. So another lesson is, in an emergency, you don't suggest. You tell people what to do. So we have those 2 marks. Now, I said this is an old project, but I was recently at Philips, and they have a showroom, and they sell this model currently, the Heart Start, and you can see the DNA of the design still there in the unit. That's the hallmark of a good design, because the 3 buttons, the graphics are the same. Another way, very powerful way, is to observe people in context. So we do a lot of observations. We design surgical instruments and tools. So we have logged a lot of hours in the OR. And we pay attention to a lot of workarounds. For instance, here's a situation where the designer could have done a better job of designing a wire management system, right? But the doctors figure it out. So pay attention to workarounds. Dr. Grant showed us slides about the ICU, and I noticed many of the pieces of equipment, high-tech equipment in that ICU had pieces of surgical tape with labels on them. Okay, that's probably a design oversight. Someone forgot that people need to identify the instrument. So we designed an example of that. We designed a line of power tools for spinal surgery for Medtronic. And we noticed during observations that surgeons would try the drill outside the patient to see which direction the drill is spinning, clockwise or counterclockwise. And sometimes in a hurry, they would try it while the drill was actually doing an operation on the patient, which is very dangerous because you're working a few millimeters away from the spinal cord. So we designed this feature, a collar, that just via tactile feedback tells you which direction it is spinning, clockwise or counterclockwise. And there are many such details in those units. We don't have time to go over them, but you get the idea. 4th way of understanding users, use analogies. We had a situation where we were designing the operating room of the future for MGH because they want to know now in the hospitals they build, what is going to be there in 10, 20 years. And we thought, what is a good analogous to the OR? It's an environment where you have a team of specialists, you have, you work under pressure, you never know what you're going to find when you open the patient. and you have many pieces of very complex equipment. And we decided to take the doctors to observe a NASCAR pit crew. Actually, this was in the New York Times many years ago because it was considered a very original idea. And trust me, we learned a few things. Actually, by we, I mean the doctors we took to field learned a few things. For instance, in NASCAR at that time, they already had this notion that you have to have kits for all the emergency procedures. So a car shows up, you don't know if it's a flat tire, you don't know if it's a muffler, you don't know if it's an engine problem. So you have kits that are clearly labeled, change tires or a fix, injection or something like that. And they have duplicate or triplicate tools in the kits. Now, in the OR, you didn't see that at the time. You would see a table with all the instruments, sterilized, and a scrivener that would hand the doctor the proper instrument for that particular operation. Now, what if the instrument is not there? It's very hard to check that table. What if you're missing something? That's a huge safety hazard. So number 5 is we strive to develop empathy, both in patients, in doctors, in all stakeholders of the process. So we had a pharmaceutical company, our clients, who kept telling us, patients don't understand instructions. They don't understand even the simplest of the instructions. They have trouble. I don't know, it's the level of literacy in this country. So we had this issue, how do we develop empathy in those highly educated people for people who are not medically literate? And the idea was to come up with a fake medical questionnaire, which is here. So the doctors were forced to answer those questions. Do you believe your malnoia is gastrostomos, doctor? Do you recollect when you have gravido? And if you know all those words, congratulations, because very few people do. I took them from a dictionary of difficult words. Now, we are talking about safety here, and being able to read instructions is a serious safety issue. It causes many medication errors. It causes lack of adherence to medication. So how do you solve that, right? So I'm glad you asked. Because there are many technical solutions to the problem. Now, people came up with all sorts of internet-connected pill bottles or devices that count the number of pills, or electronic pills, or graphic reminders, or iPhone apps. And I think one of the best ways to solve this is work we did for a company called PillPack. PillPack was our startup in residence. And what they do is, they found that most people above 40, actually, I think, if I'm not getting the statistics wrong, 40% of people above 40 take 4 or more pills a day. And they could be vitamins, they could be fish oil, they could be a prescription. And if you send your prescriptions to PillPack and vitamins, and they will package them for you, send a box to your door every month with individual packages that tell you the time of the day. If there are special instructions, the special instructions will be printed on those packages. And it's very convenient for patients. Patients love it. Doctors love it because it increases adherence. Insurance loves it, and they're paying for it. Initially, they charged a monthly subscription, but no, insurance said, no, we'll pick it up, because it reduces their cost, less side effects. And pharma, for obvious reasons, also loves it. So it's one of those beautiful solutions that are, where everybody wins. So why can't we have that in hospitals? You could potentially, this is all, actually, it's a robotic assembly line at PillPack. So we could have that in hospitals. You would dramatically reduce medication errors. So here, I hope I have given you a few examples of how understanding users, understanding humans is very important for patient safety. And thank you very much. That was my last slide.